Oodalali, oodalali, galley water day. Alrighty, so we got our boy Jacob Whelan here, and this one is titled Millions Are Choosing Isolation Over Everything. And it's a sign that ... All right, Jacob Whelan, what is that ...
We live in a time right now where things are changing drastically. It seems like every single day it's something new. And along with our changing environment, there's also a major shift in our population. People are changing. The way we do things are changing. And I know I'm not the only one to notice this because I've heard a lot of y'all and other people talk about this. And as a matter of fact, let me know in the comments below if you've seen this, just a shift in people. But, among the shifts that have occurred, there's one that I've noticed recently that I never thought I would see. And that is the fact that people are actually choosing isolation. They're choosing to remove themselves from society and the modern world, and they're isolating themselves. And this is kind of a weird one because up until just recently, being isolated was often thought to be a bad thing. If nobody wants to hang out with you, then there must be something wrong with you. But I think this is being flipped on its head because people are realizing that the reason people are isolating themselves is actually very justified. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we live in a very noisy world today. Everything's fighting for our attention. We're constantly distracted. We have constant notifications. We're surrounded by people that don't care about us. We now exist in these large population centers, surrounded by thousands or millions of people, and we can't relate to any of them. As a matter of fact, a lot of us can't relate to the modern world in general. We feel like that we've been plucked from our old timeline and dropped into this new one, and nothing makes sense. Some of us feel like old souls, like maybe we exist in the wrong era. And when you live in an environment that is that noisy and that is that distracting and just that draining, it makes sense that you would want to escape from that. And I think that's really what people are doing. They're just escaping. But the more I think about this, and the more I think about my own personal experience as someone who has been isolated most of my life, I think the reason here actually goes much deeper than this. And I think the real reason that this is happening is actually a massive silver lining. And to describe this...
Yeah, what he's describing, a lot of that is just the end stages of the mouse utopia experiment that we're in. Right. And most of you know what that is. If you haven't, you can look it up. You can either look up Mouse Utopia, or even it's also known as Universe 25. So it was this 1968 study done by John B. Calhoun. So it was done by he was at the National Institute of Mental Health. And so that's what we're witnessing. And it's also on par with a book that came out a year after that, 1969, by zoologist Desmond Morris, which is called The Human Zoo. Which the premise of that book is that it argues that modern urban life forces humans into an artificial environment, much like animals in a zoo, which is leading to social instability and stress and behavioral problems. And so, go check that out. It's a follow-up of The Naked Ape, which is comparing city dwellers to captive animals who have their needs met, but they suffer from a lack of natural space and social fulfillment, which is resulting in issues like violence and anxiety and boredom. And so Morris, he explains how humans cope with these pressures through games of power and sex and status, and it suggests that transforming urban environments to better suit our biological needs would be a good idea. But yeah, so go check that out. But as far as isolation, a lot of men are choosing isolation. It's not random that we're choosing it because we're making a calculation that being around people it's really draining. It's more draining than being alone. For men, isolation, it means peace from a lot. It's more valuable than belonging to this mouse utopian society that we currently live in that is getting more insufferable because people are changing every single day. But yet people, they treat male isolation, specifically male isolation, like it automatically means that something is wrong with that man. But I think that sometimes isolation means that his instincts are working and he's doing what he needs to do. it's a mechanism, an instinctual mechanism where he needs to isolate so that he can take it. It's just a lot of, it's a way for him not to have to keep bleeding in public, I guess you could say, metaphorically speaking, not literally, because the modern world is very loud. It is very loud. It's very distracting. It's very draining, and it is full of people that men cannot relate to anymore, right? And it's not that we are weak. It's we're just tired because every part of modern life wants access to us in some way, usually for some form of exploitation, right? Because we are surrounded by people and notifications and obligations and expectations and opinions and all of this pressure, but very little of it actually restores us, right? At some point, a man starts realizing that being alone, it gives him way more peace than being constantly available to a world that keeps taking from him, right? And that's how it feels now. It feels like people are more takers than givers. I think that's a lot of the shift that is happening. At least that is my take. But like I said, go research the Mouse Utopian Experiment, read The Human Zoo, read The Naked Ape. It will fill in a lot of blanks for you.
I'm going to use an analogy. Some of y'all are probably familiar with this. Some of you maybe not. But we're going to tie this into dogs, because dogs are nature.
Perfect. I just got a dog, and I had dogs growing up, so this should be good.
And we can learn a lot from nature. And there's something that dogs do, both wild and domesticated, that really ties into this. And I've witnessed this personally. So let me just take you back to my childhood. All right. I used to have a dog that was named Bear. She was part Chow, part German Shepherd. Beautiful dog. She lived to be very, very old. I'll share. I know where he's going with this, I think. I had two dogs. Well, first I had a half Chow, half Golden Retriever. And then after my grandfather passed away, they had a German Shepherd. His name was Duke. My dog's name was Taylor. God, he was adorable. I miss that dog every day. And one day, Bear followed us to the end of our driveway, which was very long because I grew up on a farm. And she ran out into the road and she got hit right in front of us. It was me, my dad, and my brother in the truck. It was very traumatizing, very sad, but she got hit pretty bad. And my dad went out there in the road, picked her up, put her in the back of the truck. We took her back to the house, and my dad was going to put her down. While he was getting the stuff ready to put her down, we came back outside, and Bear disappeared. We went out every single day for 3 days straight, and we called for Bear. We searched the entire farm. We searched the surrounding areas. Couldn't find her. She just vanished. And then one day, I walked out on our back porch, and to my disbelief, Bear was standing there. I went outside to check on her, and she had miraculously completely healed herself. Yes, she had some scars. She was missing some fur. She had some scrapes and some cuts and stuff like that. And she had all kinds of burrs and stuff stuck in her fur from where she'd been doing who knows what. But she was there, and she appeared to be totally fine. And she was, because fast forward at least a decade later, she lived to be very, very old. I want to say 16 or 18 years old in human years, which is very old for a dog. But later on in life, when she was very old, she disappeared again for no rhyme or reason. She just walked off into the woods and she never came back. And we called for her the same way we did before. We went looking for her for weeks on end and never found her. So naturally, this left me looking for answers. And through my research, I found that this is actually a very common thing that both wild and domesticated dogs do when they reach the end of their lives. They will often isolate themselves and disappear and go off to die. And the reason they do this is because when they're in that state, they are very vulnerable. And being in a vulnerable position puts not only the dog itself at risk, but it puts the rest of the pack at risk to opposing forces and to predators. So the dog will actually retreat from the pack and it will go off on its own so that it can die. This is nature. This is a natural defense mechanism that is hardwired into these dogs from birth. Anytime that they feel a sense of impending doom, and they feel threatened and vulnerable, they isolate themselves and they disappear. In some cases, it's so that they can heal. In other cases, it's so that they can die. And when I think about how this might relate to us, I think that is exactly what's happening. I think a lot of us feel so threatened and so vulnerable by the current situation that we're in that there is a natural, innate sense, this thing that is hardwired into us that is being triggered, and it's causing us to retreat and isolate ourselves. In some cases, it's so that we can heal, and in other cases, it's so that we can die. But when we die in this situation, it's not the same as what these dogs are going through.
Yeah. Actually, let me. What was you gonna
Because
say?
what I believe is happening when we die is that it's not us physically that is going away. It is a version
Yeah.
of ourselves that was created based off of lies and manipulation. Because what happens when that defense mechanism is triggered and we find ourselves in isolation is
Right.
everything starts to come into focus. All the stuff that we've been told to avoid, all the things that we buried, the version of ourselves that we buried, it
Right.
starts to resurface. When we give ourselves that time and that space to just be present and to just feel, that is when we start to heal. That is
Yeah, so a lot of that just sounds like individuation, but I myself, like I said, with my two dogs. So I lived in West Texas, and it was really windy one day, and the the fence had blown over, and because we had straight line winds that were going, I think 55 to 70 miles an hour, and my dog Taylor and our dog Duke were in the backyard. Duke also, he was not completely blind. He couldn't see very well, and he was deaf. So, and he was a lot older, and so he was kind of on his last leg. I'll get to that, but um, what had happened was our dog Taylor. He actually normally he's an escape artist. Normally he gets loose and he's gone. We always find him, but Duke just disappeared, and we didn't see him for a long time, and then one day, I don't know how long it was. It might have been a week or two. Somebody found him dead in a field that was a few miles away. So he himself, he knew he was going to die, and so he left my dog. He left the safety of the yard and went out to die. And yeah, when an animal feels vulnerable, it retreats because exposure can attract more danger, right? If you're in a wolf pack. Um, but that resonates a lot with me, right? When you go to lick, because you have to lick your wounds, right? Because um there's just a lot that men have to go through, right? When a man is wounded and betrayed and humiliated and just exhausted, I think that there's something ancient in him that tells him to get away and to get quiet and recover where nobody can reach him. And that's why a lot of men, they disappear after they've been through something severe. Um, I don't. I'm sure that there are a lot of people would say, "Oh, that sounds very dramatic," but I don't really think that's the case. They're just trying to survive this period that they're in, where they're too wounded, and they can't really keep pretending that they're fine. And so they need to do that. And then also through that process, their old self dies, and they're able to, if they are on that path to individuation, are able to become their whole self, right? And to integrate their shadow, um, and have this rebirth that he was talking about. Um, but that's the thing, is men, they don't usually want it. They don't want an audience when they're hurting, right? Because in this day and age, your vulnerability has consequences, right? Depending on, it's best just to isolate and be alone. You don't want to open up and get mocked. Too many men learn things the hard way, right? They were honest to someone, um, and then and whatever they had said, the vulnerability that they shared, it was, they viewed it as weakness, and then they used it against them. Maybe lost respect for them, whatever the case may be. Um, it's not a personality defect when a man retreats like that, right? It's just his nervous system is just protecting him from all of that, from what's left of him, right? And just for myself personally, isolation has been a very good thing. A lot of healing has happened. Um, and yes, what often dies, the thing that often dies in isolation is that the false version of himself, right? That agreeableness in him dies. That people pleasing man that he was dies, right? The man who thought being useful would make him loved dies, right? The one that swallowed disrespect and just kept taking it and taking it, taking it just to keep the peace, right? That dies. That man dies. And from the outside, yeah, maybe it looks cold to some people, but on the inside, it's for that man, it's freedom, right? That man is not becoming worse in isolation and through isolation like people think. It's not a bad thing. It's a very good thing, right? It's like, this is really dumb to say and really cheesy. I can't believe I'm saying it, but it is like a caterpillar that is in its cocoon turning into a butterfly, right? It's going through that metamorphosis. He's going through a metamorphosis, right? I know that's lame, right? But whatever, okay? I don't care. But a lot of these men, they're going off to die. Not a physical death, but this spiritual death. They're finally letting the version of themselves die. These versions that only benefit other people and not himself. So I think that's a great thing. And you need silence for that. You need to have that Faraday cage from the outside world. You need to have you can't have any noise, right? And I think that a lot of men are betraying themselves if they don't go through this period of isolation. Okay, I'm not glorifying a life of permanent isolation, and this isn't an everybody sucks, leave me alone hermit type. I'm not ranting about that. That's a completely different conversation. I don't want to be a hermit. I like being around people. I enjoy connection with other people. Men love connection, right? With the right people, right? It's with the right people. It's not just with everyone, okay? A man needs to figure out who he really is. And he just needs to figure things out, right? Men just need that, right? That isolation needs to happen. But let's continue on.
Is when the version of ourselves that was created based off of societal groupthink and all of these inceptions and these false ideas, these false beliefs that were planted into our minds, that version of ourselves begins to die. But this death isn't permanent, and it doesn't mean the end. This is just us getting out of our own way and creating space for healing and rebirth. And that's exactly what I believe is happening. I believe that by isolating ourselves, we are giving ourselves the space and the permission to essentially lay waste to the person that we created and that we have become based off of who society has told us to be. And in the peace and the silence that we find in isolation, we are rediscovering our true selves. And that true self, it's been there all along. We've just been too distracted and too preoccupied with all the noise to remember that we exist. So the next time you feel yourself leaning into isolation and you feel like you're kind of being pushed there by an unseen force, try to think about it in this way. Try to remember that maybe it's just your body's natural defense mechanisms. Maybe it's just you creating that space for yourself to regain your focus and to see things more clearly, to see things for what they really are. And maybe that focus and that clarity that you gain from being in isolation is going to be the very thing that allows your true self to be reborn.
Look at that, man. That is beautiful, dude. That is freaking beautiful. Man, I am so glad I bought my dog. It's for me and my son, but I'm so glad that we have that dog now. But yeah, it's the right kind of isolation can create space for a man to rebuild himself, right? And when a man comes back from real isolation, he usually comes back with fewer illusions, right? And he starts putting up harder boundaries, and he has less interest in being liked. Okay. I think that's why a lot of people find him cold, right? They're used to the old version of him that was more available and more agreeable and easier to manipulate, right? The softer version. Um, but that isolation, it gives that man his judgment and discernment back, right? It recalibrates him. It sheds him of those masks, right? Those people pleasing masks, that agreeableness that he developed as a child, right? The survival mechanisms, whatever masks he had to put on to please the people around him, whether it was his family or his friends or people at church or people in school, right? He knows who he is, and he knows who deserves access to him, right? That's what he knows. That's where the boundaries come in, right? You get a lot of filters through that process. You come out the other side with a lot more filters for people. You don't just let any Joe Schmo schmuck into your life, right? It's only the people that deserve access to him, and yeah, it's only those that deserve. And so, but like I said, the goal here, I'm not worshiping isolation forever. The goal is to use it correctly. Because it's a very powerful tool, right? It should be a recovery room for you, right? It's not a grave. It's not permanent. Because yes, men, they need solitude to heal. Men need to go off alone sometimes and lick their wounds, and then to get their strength back and remember who they are without everyone else's expectations pressing down on them, right? But a man, he does also have to be honest with himself, right? There is a difference between healing in that silence and slowly disappearing and fading off forever. And you're like, oh, this is my peace, but you're not. You're just you turn into a hermit or something. I don't. Maybe some people do find peace in permanent isolation. I'm not one of those people. Right. I know there's priests out there and monks, there mountain men, people out there that they will say that is ultimate peace. Right. I don't care about women. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. I don't care about consuming anything. I just want a simple life out in the mountains. Plenty of men have done that, at least for decades. I don't know about forever. I don't know. Maybe you in the comment section, let me know if you're one of those men or if you know any of those men. Because yeah, more power to you. If that is something that you think that you're wired to be, then go for it. But I think most of us are not wired that way. We want to have that isolation, but we want to come out the other side, and we do want to have connection with just the right people. I think that what we did is we just let too many people in that just caused us to create those masks, and we have to shed those people, shed the masks, and now we got to be like, okay, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone. Okay, you can stay, right? Here's a form, here's a process, here's a background check, right? There's a lot more involved to being in my life now. And so I think that's a healthy place for men to be. Whether you want to be alone or if you at some point want to find a woman, get into a relationship, have a family, that's a whole other topic with a whole other set of risks and issues, which I talked about, I think, on my last video. So, but yeah, the point is that like, it's not to hate people forever. Even those Matrix people, right? The people that are plugged in, the NPCs. I don't hate all of them. I mean, I don't hate them. There are some of them are annoying, and it's order followers. That's a whole other topic right there. But order followers who really cause tyranny and destruction to our daily lives, and to our society, and to countries, to civilizations. It's the people that carry out orders, those unjust orders. So, but yeah, find isolation, use it wisely, use it as a recovery room. Don't die there forever. It's not a forever place to go. But yeah, stop giving access to people who keep draining you. that's it. That's it, dude. You got to be selfish. It's okay to be a little selfish, right? Especially if you have kids, right? If you're a single dad like me, you got to be selfish so you can be a better dad for them. All right? You got to be a better dad by just really taking that time to figuring yourself out and getting over some stuff. Get over that pain, right? Lick your wounds, get your energy back, get your strength back, and just set up proper boundaries, and then teach your son to do the same so that he can grow up to be to have a good level of discernment and judgment, and he can have peace, right? You don't want him to, you want him to face adversity, but you don't want, because you want him to have the strength that he needs. You want him to be a strong, masculine man. So also your heart goes out to him because you don't want him to have to suffer in some of the ways that you had to. And so if you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. But I digress. I love you all. I appreciate you taking the time, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right.